Hey everybody, today I'm going to walk you through a couple of things. The first part is going to go with the notes, and it's about measuring increments of time and studying time or history. And to wrap it up, there's going to be an activity that deals with the calendar, like how the months got their names and how the days of the week got their names. So it's kind of just a fun matching activity that goes together. But I'll show you real quick. We'll start with this. This is the information that we're going to add a good amount of this to our notebook, and we're going to talk about it right now. And then at the bottom, I just have as kind of the word bank for the calendar activity, the days of the week and the names of the months. Okay, but for right now, I'll move myself out of the way here. In a notebook, you want to just start another new page and just title it Measuring Time. And as we talked about the other day, with the timeline and the BC and the AD, we're just starting off this unit by talking about measuring or calculating time throughout history. So right here, you don't have to add 10, 100, and 1,000, but that's going to start us off for our conversation today. As we mentioned the other day, that 10 years equals a decade, 100 years equals a century, and 1,000 years equals a millennium. But obviously, in the course of history, not every time period of history could be contained by 10, 100, or even 1,000 years. All right. Obviously, a lot of people know about things like dinosaurs living millions of years ago. So that's a pretty hard thing to break up by thousands of years or hundreds of years or 10 years. So we start with this, whoops, we start with this term right here, era. So we want to add that word and its definition to the notebook. And I'll tell you real quick, an era does not have any defined amount of years with it. So era can be very few years, or an era can be a long time, like millions of years. So real quick, it just says a large division of time, which again, large is kind of a operative word here, but it is a division of time again that is not necessarily defined in certain cases. So I have an example here, like the Middle Ages, and I have Jurassic period. And I put those there because the Middle Ages was a pretty long period of time, right? Several hundreds of years, depending on who you kind of think about or talk to. But really, the Jurassic period is a period of millions of years. Both of them are somewhat undefined, like when they officially started and when they officially ended, but they're also obviously pretty large divisions of time. They don't fall into the 10, 1,000, even 10,000, even sometimes a million category. They go over several different years. Now, in the case of the Middle Ages, it is obviously shorter than the Jurassic period, but there's still two eras of time. Okay, so not to confuse you too much, but basically an era is what we're going to use to describe periods of time that again are not going to fall into these categories. Now, this next part, you have paleontology, archaeology, and anthropology. So obviously, anytime you see that OLOGY, you know that it's a study of something. So like biology is an example because you're studying, life. In paleontology, archaeology, and anthropology, we have three types of researchers that look at different things related to history. So, what I did is I gave a few examples of what they study and kind of what periods of time they study. And they do go in, not alphabetical, but they go in chronological order. So that means that paleontology, they study the longest amount of time, like the oldest amount of time. Archaeology is kind of in the middle, and then anthropology is kind of a mix. It can be recent stuff and obviously ancient stuff. So to do this, we'll break down the definition. Okay, we'll write everything you see on here, but we'll go in pieces here. So for paleontology, you have the study of fossils and prehistoric time. So real quick, obviously prehistoric time is any time that is before recorded human history. Doesn't mean that humans did not necessarily exist yet, but it does mean that they did not have a language or any means of written communication that we still know of today. So paleontologists study prehistoric time. Now I put in green highlight here the word fossils because we want to know from this information the difference between a fossil and an artifact. And that's what these little breakdown uh, similar color definitions go with. So, for example, fossils are a plant or animal remain. So, notice they have nothing to do with human creation. So, they are old, kind of fossilized plants or fossilized animal bones. And paleontologists look at those things to obviously study all this prehistoric time. I'm going to jump to archaeology because this is a little bit more recent. Now, not recent like in the last couple of years, but more recent than obviously fossils that go with paleontologists. Archaeologists study artifacts to learn about the past of human life. So, obviously, they study things related to humans or since humans started recording different things or creating different things that we can find. And if you notice here, artifacts are objects made by people. So that is a real takeaway from this information that fossils are not man made. They're plant or animal, just kind of leftover remains or fossilized material. And artifacts are literally objects created in some way, shape, or form by people. So it could be an old vase or bowl or a bow and arrow with an arrowhead or tools. So that's how you can tell the difference between the fossils and the artifacts. All right. The last one's anthropology. Anthropology is kind of a combination of both of them. So that's why I put green and purple over here. But they study human culture. Human culture, again, has to do with humans, it has to do with human made things. But they can also study fossils because fossils might tell you about life during that time, but it wasn't necessarily made by a human. So it could be a fossil and not an artifact because of that. Okay, so if you notice again, anthropology being the last one, they could study something that's brand new as an artifact, something that somebody made recently, or they could even study fossils. But they put them together to find out information about life surrounding humans at different times of the Earth's history. Okay, now I know that was a lot of information in a short amount of time, but basically you're again coming away with all these different forms of study of history or different time periods. And again, to wrap it up, is kind of a fun activity that we're doing in class here, kind of in a similar way. I have all the months of the year abbreviated down here, and I have all the days of the week. You can write them down on this side sheet if you want to, or you can always go back to this video and pause them. Not that you don't necessarily know your months and days, but it's just as an example. And what I want you to do, if you all are looking, it's attached here in the announcement. I have a matching activity where all the answers are either the name of a month or the name of a day of the week. What I want you to try to figure out, and you don't want to necessarily just guess right away, but I want you to figure out what the answer is that would go in this box. And then somewhere in the sentence, in the description, I want you to circle or highlight or put a star next to somewhere in that sentence that gave it away. Okay. I feel like there's a few of these that we could really do pretty easily, like this one. And what I want you to do is put the name and somewhere in here circle or underline what gave it away. So look at this. Latin for dies solis, which means day of the sun. So I'm pretty sure you can figure out which day of the week is named after the sun. So you can write that answer in here, but back in the sentence, you can go circle or underline or highlight or check mark, like I said, parts of the sentence that gave it away. So that helped you figure out the answer. Okay. And for this paper, you can definitely submit the answers, print it out and take a picture, or you can just literally type the answers in a Google document of some form and you can type out everything that you need to add from inside the sentence. However you feel like you want to do it is best. Okay, so again, hopefully you've got the notes in the notebook that we just went over, and you've got this paper, the calendar activity coming out of this assignment as well. So it's a couple of things. Okay, so hopefully you're staying well out there. And again, just if you have any questions, feel free to contact me before you submit the work if you're worried about something being wrong or you can't find a document. But again, be well, and we'll talk to you all very soon. All right, bye.